Hello, welcome to Thoughts Unbound. Sorry, my mind is just not here right now. Yeah, I'm Victoria, and today's topic we're going to be doing trauma. We're going to be discussing the three main types. And the way the video is going to go is I'm going to have chapters. The video is not going to be too long because I don't really see the point of it being too long. But I do have a PowerPoint here that I'm also going to be adding into this video here. So sometimes I'll be on screen and sometimes I won't. But yeah, so trauma. All right, so I am not a medical professional at all whatsoever. I'm the patient, and I'm just a girl with a complex past. I do have complex PTSD. That is kind of why I decided to come up with this channel, because I just kind of found out that I had it in 2021 when I was 25. I'm 29 now. But although, like, I can't necessarily give or provide medical advice, I still can at least try to document my own, I guess, like, journey with the whole situation, and then maybe help others out there to not feel so alone, because having complex PTSD is a very lonesome disorder, truthfully. All right, so chapter 1, defining trauma. Trauma is a strong emotional response to an uncomfortable experience. So that could be anything, right? That could be you asleep and you hear the fire alarm go off and it scares the living shit out of you. That's a traumatic experience. It can be something like minor, like not even minor, but it can happen so quickly. And sometimes with trauma there are times when you can go through something and you not necessarily feel like you have, like you feel fine in that moment, like you're good, like, no, I'm good, like I'm cool, I got it, but then you won't realize it until later on in life, or whenever it is that you are potentially reminded of that past experience. And then that's when you will kind of go into like this anxious mode where you're going to like fight, flight, fawn. They just keep adding so many things to that. But it's like an emotion in your body, or like it's something that kind of gets turned on in your body due to remembering how that traumatic situation happened, and something in your vicinity, something around you, a thought, a smell, a look, a touch, could just kind of like bring that back to you, and you can now be in that traumatic like experience, or like you're going through it again. It's kind of like an epiphany of some sort, if that makes sense. So with a trauma, if it is left untreated, it can leave a person being scared, befuddled, and it may even change the view that they have of themselves, as well as the view that they have around them. So they could become, like with complex PTSD, for instance, if it goes without being treated, like with me, I'm still not a very talkative person. I'm very much a person that's kind of like in my shell. I spend most of my time alone at home by myself. I don't have friends. The only person I have right now is my dad. I lost my mom in 2015. And yeah, when I started to notice that I was kind of having an issue is when I noticed that I can't build relationships and I can't keep them. So yeah, but if you want to know more about that, I have videos beforehand that kind of will let you know about my situation, but we're just talking about trauma. Chapter 2. What is a traumatic experience? An event that is distressing and terrible for a person. It can be an occurrence so alarming or injurious that it can make someone feel afraid, stunned, or powerless. So it's just like what I said, like if you're in your car and you just get like rear-ended out of nowhere, like that can literally be a very traumatic situation or a traumatic experience for you, because you've never been through it and it happens so quickly, and they do tend to happen like that. Or there can be things where it can be something like, not to get so dark, but I kind of want to like put it so you know it can happen in every situation. Like with, she had a date, and it was a really nice date that she had, and you know, they go back to her place, and you know, they're like, it's like a recap, like they're drinking, and well, it's not even like they're drinking, it's just they're drinking, they're having like a quick drink. I think they went in there for coffee or something, and then the guy, he's really nice, so she was like, yeah, you know, you can come in and we'll just drink some coffee. And she's a very, you know, like one of those people that's just very lively, and she likes to dance and all that stuff. And he ended up raping her in her own apartment that night, because he took her inviting him into her house for a recap as an invitation for intimacy, and that's not what it was. She was just genuinely interested in him, and he completely took, you know, like advantage of that. And that's a very traumatic experience because she did not see that coming. So there's that one. I'm sorry, I didn't want to go so dark, but yeah. Okay, so traumatic experience, they can vary from person to person, as different things can be traumatic for different individuals. So for some people, a car accident won't be traumatic for them, whereas somebody else, a car accident will make them lose their marbles, you know, like they go into like this panic state. Say as if like if like I'll give an example. Like I used to be a weed head. Like I used to smoke marijuana like a lot. Like a lot. I ended up stopping, but and now it's like I don't like the smell of it, because it brings me back to certain situations from my past that were apparently traumatic for me, but I did not know that they were until after I stopped smoking. And then I would kind of be in a situation that was close to it, or I would get like a whiff of it, you know, because I mean, people kind of just do it, you know. They just do it out loud now. So whenever I smell marijuana, and especially high grade marijuana, because I was always I used to only do Arizona. That was like the generic brand of it. Like I never understood high grade weed, because to me, to this day, like I just don't like the smell of it. It's too strong, and first of all, I don't know how high you're trying to get. I like one joint of Arizona, I could not finish one joint of Arizona, and these people out here are like doing a whole fucking spliff of high grade, and it's amazing to me, because I don't know, but the smell of it is very traumatic to me, is what I'm saying. And some people, they'll get triggered by the smell of alcohol, or they'll get triggered by the smell of a certain perfume, or it's like traumatic experience it's just different for everybody else. Everybody else is triggered by whatever it is that they're triggered by. You know, it's not a one size fits all, basically. Traumatic experience can have a long-term impact on a person's thoughts, feelings, and behavior, resulting in isolation, avoidance, just to name a couple. That is something that definitely comes with trauma. I believe that it can have, well, obviously it can have a very long-term effect, especially if it's a person who doesn't necessarily believe that there is anything wrong with them. It's just, you know, the way that they are. And a lot of people like to kind of just say like, you know, this is just the way that I am and whatever. And I mean, I respect that and stuff like that, but I also feel like you should always try to look into things, you know, that are kind of, I wouldn't say worrying, but just kind of like, you know, that you're this way because of a certain situation, you know? So instead of saying like, this is just how I am, why are you like that? Ever since such and such happened, this is just the way that I am. Okay, but what happened? But I'm not saying do that on your own. Always do that with medical professionals around, because there are certain things that you will end up remembering or end up coming back to you that will trigger an emotional response. And sometimes it's not very good. Sometimes it can lead to addiction. Sometimes it can lead to substances, dangerous, self-sabotaging type of behaviors, where you just kind of, it's a way of you trying to soothe yourself, you know, from remembering whatever it is that you're remembering at that time, you know. And with me, what I tend to do is I isolate, I avoid, and I isolate. Those are my two things. Like, that's like my main thing. I just isolate and avoid, isolate. Like, those are the only two things that I have which are very bad because, yeah. Chapter 4, 3 main types of trauma. Oh, my left hand is itching. All right, so we have three main types of trauma. We have the acute, the chronic, and the complex. So the acute is a single intense and often unexpected event that overwhelms a person's ability to cope. It happens suddenly and can lead to strong emotional and physical reactions. So that's your car accidents, your like a natural disaster, hurricane, a tornado, and being in like a physical fight, like you being the victim, or even if you are the perpetrator, like anything like that. But I would more say on being the victim, you know, you being physically attacked by somebody or something or whatever, you know, that's considered acute. Then our next one we have is chronic. When someone experiences stress repeatedly, leading to small traumas that make it difficult to cope with stress. Now, that is where you find your bullying, your long-term abuse, which is like your emotional abuse, your physical, your psychological abuse in a relationship, and soldiers or civilians that live in, you know, like that area that is just like a war zone. Like, think Ukraine right now, and think all the other places that they have wars, you know, that like that type of stuff. It's chronic. And now we have complex, which is me, complex PTSD. That's when someone goes through multiple traumatic events as a child, which impacts their self-perception and relationships. It can lead to difficulties in emotional regulation and interpersonal functioning. So with complex, we have your childhood abuse, neglect, and frequent loss and disruption. When we think of the frequent loss and disruption, you can think of that as like being evicted, being moved from place to place, you being left from place to place. Neglect, saying as if you may have your parents around, but they could potentially be addicts, or they could be people who only care for themselves, you know, like they make sure that they're okay. And once you have a roof over your head and you're in the house and you're safe, to them you are not neglected. But that is basic neglect. You know, they don't really send you to school, they don't make sure that you have food in the house, they make sure you have a roof but you don't got no food in there. There's like that you don't it's stuff like that. You neglect, okay? We already know what neglect is. Childhood abuse, that is physical, emotional, and sexual abuse from a caregiver. So that can be your parent, that can be a guardian, that can be a you know, if you happen to be in the adoptions part of that as well. That is complex. So as a quick recap, that is all. Trauma is a strong response to frightening experience impacting thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Traumatic events can vary, causing fear, shock, and powerlessness. Different types of trauma include acute, chronic, and complex, and the brain reacts to trauma to protect us, but it can also affect how we feel about ourselves. So, no, there is another part that I did not say in here. I talked about the long-term effects, but I didn't talk about the treatment. Okay, so with the treatment, I'm just going to kind of say that off the top of my head because I feel like when it comes to trauma, there is really only one, or like 1 to 2 real ways of treating trauma, and that is through support from your loved ones, from your family, as well as professional help. Support from your family and your loved ones, that one comes, you're gonna need that, because that's gonna be something that you can fall back on whenever you feel as though the professional help is not necessarily helping you in the way in which you think that you believe it should. So you'll always need like that support system to come back home to. And if you don't have that, at the very least, you need to have the professional help there, which I know is very hard to get because it's just the way of the world right now, you know. And then plus with the brown and black community, we typically don't like to go for help due to, you know, past things that we have heard through the grapevine of what through history that you know about, where they, you know, they kind of use us as guinea pigs and stuff like that. So we don't necessarily go to or look towards getting professional help or just any type of medical help until we're like literally about to die, or at least feel that we're about to die. And I do feel like that is something that us in the black and brown community need to kind of at least try to, I won't say completely, you know, just forget about that, because you should never forget about that. But just be very wary of who you go to and what you listen to. Always try to get another opinion. Don't just go based off of what this one doctor is telling you. Because I have a therapist now, and she's a third therapist. She's like, I had my first one who diagnosed me in 2021, and then I had another one, and then I gave up on her because she pissed me off, and then I got the one that I have now, and I've been seeing her since last year in September is when I found her. So it just be very wary when it comes to professional help. But I do believe that that is something that we need to start to look into, especially when it comes to mental health disorders, because we gotta, you know, I think we some dope people. We are. And I think that we just need to just work on ourselves, you know? Even though I feel like, I'm not gonna say that. But yeah, we just need to make sure that we take care of ourselves, you know? And if there's something that you feel it may not be all the way right, or you feel like you may need to talk to somebody, don't be embarrassed of that. Like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay if you're scared, and it's okay if you feel like, I don't really need help or whatever. I completely understand that, believe me. And then plus, on top of the fact that it is expensive as all hell. Okay, so I know about that, but don't just completely, you know, chuck that out the window. Like, just always, especially if you don't have any type of support system, like if you don't have friends, if you don't really have family and stuff like that, it'll be a lot better to just try, you know, and find some professional help, until that can at least help you to kind of get out of your head a little bit and help you to understand what's going on in your head a little bit, so you can take some time out of it and be in the moment of where you are, you know. So understanding trauma does matter, with my little spiel I just did. It does help us empathize and connect. It breaks down stigmas around mental health, and it does support healing and encourages open conversations. So thank you so much for joining me. That is all. That's gonna be the end of the video. And if you did find this video helpful, or if I made you, like, you know, smile, grin, chuckle, smirk, just, you know, please like, subscribe, and comment for engagement, just so, you know, I can reach other people who might be, you know, needing some type of, I don't know, information or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, so that's gonna be the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching with me. This is Thoughts Unbound, and I am Victoria. And as long as you got me, I got you. Till then.